All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining me again. Those of you who were with me earlier on for the printing live broadcast, but thanks again for joining me. You can see the chat room's already got people in it. If you could just let me know in the chat there that you can see and hear things as per usual, that'd be a huge help. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for letting me know. It's always good, as you do know, those of you who are regulars. It's just nice to get the technicals out of the way, making sure they work. Just been chatting to Enrico before we started the live, and my God, am I looking forward to this. I can't wait for you to see the promo reel, but then I can't wait for him to see it. I just hope he likes it. Alrighty, we are live again for those of you who were with me a short while ago, but thank you so much for joining me. I can see already we've got plenty of activity going on in the chat room, people from all over the place. I think our friend from New York's back as well, which is great to see. So listen, we are in for a treat. We really, really are. I am so glad that Nick Page and Renee Robin put me onto Enrico Fossati. How did I not know of this guy? I mean, his work is just phenomenal. Just by that thumbnail you would have seen there. I've put a link to his website in the chat, but I'm really looking forward to you seeing the promo. I think I say it every week. I think I've made my favourite. I think I really have now made my favourite. I'll talk about that in a minute. But before we do go into that, let's just go through some of the admin. So the first things to let you know about, obviously, for me, it's been a big week for me. It's so far, the weekend rather. It's the How to Print course has finally launched. Obviously, the pre-order was up and running for about 3 weeks, was it? Something like that. But it has gone incredibly well. And more than anything, the positive feedback has been mind-blowing. It really, really has. My friend Nigel Thomas, who I know's in the chat there, I don't know how he's done it, but I think there's about 7 hours worth of content. He's already gone through it all. He's gone through it all. He was sending me pictures of little bits that he was watching. But very kindly, he has done a very honest review of it, his first impressions, and he's put that on the Fine Art America blog, which I am really grateful for. It's absolutely lovely. And I was saying to the folks earlier on during the How to Print live broadcast that I did is that Nigel has very quickly become a very, very close friend. And we've got the kind of relationship where I'm sure he knows that if he had something to say and be honest and blunt with me, he knows he could be, because of the relationship that we've got. And so for him to put those kind of words up there, which I know are going to be honest from him, means a lot. It really, really does. So it's lovely. But there's been lots of good stuff coming through from other people as well, which is just wonderful. So thank you for that. Something else to let you know about, I did, for those of you who are subscribers to my newsletter, obviously I do newsletter subscriber only content, as well as stuff that goes on my YouTube channel. But I'm creating stuff and sharing stuff on my newsletter now on a private page for people who subscribe. And recently, in the last few days, I put that full-length tutorial up. So it's a 40-minute tutorial taking you through how I retouch seascapes. So it takes you through using Lightroom and using Photoshop, blending images together, masking, some effects in there as well, using blend modes to composite things in, creating a black and white image. That's on there now. So those of you who are members of my newsletter group, you've obviously got that on the private page. If you're not a member, that's where you need to go. Just use that QR code. I think also that link is going to be in the chat as well. It'll be on the blog post tomorrow. And the last thing before we dive into this promo reel is Ian. I've been mentioning it for the last couple of weeks or so that Ian's, my friend Ian Munro, he's going to be attempting to climb Mont Blanc. Well, he's there now. He's in Chamonix as we speak. He's landed. I don't know what the weather's like this week, but everybody that knows him has got everything crossed that the weather just works out for him to be able to go and do that, because he has put so much time and effort and money into it. And if anybody can do it, he can do it. So all I'll ask is, there's a link. I've already put it in the chat. There's a link to the page where he's raising the money for the dog rescue, Hope Rescue. All the money goes to, like I said before, every single penny, every single euro, every single dollar, or whatever currency you're in, everything goes to the dog rescue. The money that it's cost him to do this, to get out there, the kit, the accommodation, everything, he's paid for. So that link, like I said, is in the chat. It'll be in the blog post again tomorrow. He's so close to getting what he needs to get. If you can see here, look, top right-hand corner. And I know that some people watching last week contributed, which was amazing. He's nearly there. So, and I think he's in the chat. I think I saw him in the chat. There you go. Right. Okay. Enrico Fossati. Oh my God. I'm so looking forward to this. Got loads of notes, but I've put his promo together. He sent me over a number of images, as every guest does. And I've put together this promotional little reel slideshow. And I've really enjoyed doing these, but and I know since I've been doing them, there's been ones that have been really like, my favourites. But like I said, this one's really moved me. I genuinely, and it's not because I put it together, but I'm sitting there watching it. I've got a good ear for the music. And I think when you look at his images with this music, it is genuinely moving. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So what I've done is I've put it together. You're not going to see images going quickly past the screen. There's enough time to just start to absorb them. So where you are now, just get yourself comfy, sit, relax, and just take this in. Take these images in with the music. It's absolutely beautiful stuff, and I can't wait to find out more. So this is the promo I've made for the incredible Enrico Fossati. I can feel it now. Do you know what I mean? It's just wow. When you see music and pictures together, God, it's moving. It really is really moving. And I can see that the comments in the chat there, God, I was teetering then. I was proper teetering. Right, let me get this man in. Let's just unmute him, make sure that's working. And I'm going to bring him over now. So, Enrico, can you hear me?
Thank you, Glenn. Your presentation was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's just
Beautiful music. Thanks.
It just works, doesn't it? There's something about those images. I don't think, I mean, I literally found that music on Artlist, which is what I use, within 30 seconds, because you just know when the right music's there. But God, that was just phenomenal. Listen, Enrico, I know obviously there's just a slight time difference between us. It's a non-working day for you, but thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to come and do this for us.
I'm so glad to be here, and thanks to you for the invitation, and to Renee that I don't know if she is listening us, but I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I don't know if you've seen the chat, because obviously on your screen you do get to see stuff that's coming in, but I mean, just look at some of this stuff here. Incredible. Doesn't even begin to express these. I mean, it's just every comment here. My friend Anthony there, Nigel, who's been desperate to see this. Sensational works of art. It goes on. It goes on and on and on. And just, I mean, JJ3 Photography, 2 words that just couldn't say it better. Just wow. Just wow. So I'm so looking forward, mate. It is well and truly justified. It really, really is. I am so looking forward to going through this and just finding just a glimpse into what makes you do what you do and able to do what you do and your process and stuff like that. I've got a sheet of paper here that I tidily typed stuff up, but then I kept thinking of other stuff, as you can see, as I sort of scribbled it all over. But listen, what I do every week with this when we first get started is to say, look, what got you to where you are now? What's the kind of like a potted short history to say what took you from years ago to wherever it was to now being the person that you are doing the work that you're doing?
Well, first of all, thank you for many compliments. I'm so glad you enjoyed my pictures. And about my history as photographer, well, it started very, very easily. I mean, I was just like a tourist with the passion for landscapes, and I was taking my picture, just traveling, but shooting just memories, and even with a simple camera, nothing of very professional or things like that. But one day I started to edit my pictures with my computer, because professionally I'm an IT, so Photoshop it was like a permanent program in my computer since many years ago. And I started to make some minor adjustment, like I don't know, saturation, contrast, white balance, and this kind of things. And later, one day, a friend of mine told me, well, why you didn't purchase a camera, a serious camera? I mean, because at the time I was using a compact camera it was like a Nikon Coolpix in 2001. Actually, it was pretty good, because I remember there was the feature of shooting RAW, and well, it was pretty advanced for my usual camera, because I was shooting with something really basic. And later I started to study a little bit more, and then I started to develop a kind of processing that was a little more articulated. Of course, at the beginning it was very challenging. First of all, because in Italy there was nobody doing the photography that I was looking for. My first love in the world of fine art landscape photography, beside the English photographer like Lee Frost, David Norton, the famous photographers that everybody know. I fell in love for Mark Adamus in the beginning of 2008, 2009, and I love this way to process, very, very painterly, a little bit artistic, and I started to think to do the same with my photography, but actually it was pretty complicated at the time. I remember the tutorials that were available on the magazine or on the web were pretty basic, and the concept of start to finish tutorial at the time it was unknown. Later, I continued to study and to develop my skills, and then suddenly one day I discovered the luminosity mask. And luminosity mask was like a turning point in my photography because I started to paint over. I mean, that is the
Right.
cornerstone of my workflow, and the possibility of using burn and dodge, targeting specific areas and tones, and
Yeah.
that it was a game changer for me. And then I have to thank you, many guys of the American community, because in 2012, 2013, I met a group of photographers that at the time were not so famous, but I remember that in this group there were big names like Alex Noriega, Ted Gore, Erin Babnik, and I joined this group. There was like a criticism group on Facebook. It was
Yeah.
a closed group just for hardcore photographers because it was pretty harsh. I remember the critics were not like, yeah, nice shot, but you can improve. But it was something serious like, this sucks. You have to change it. It's completely wrong. Well, well, it was very helpful compared to the social media that we are used to see. That everybody are always make compliments. At the time, there was, well, at least 90% of time. But the nice thing of this group that was the possibility to learn something that was well, for me it was very helpful. So thanks to these guys, I started to learn new techniques that for me were very important, because thanks to these techniques I was able to build the base of my actual workflow. Then of
Right.
course, after I got the tools, I started to develop and develop. And well, my idea since the beginning, it was to render my landscape a little more fantasy looking. I am a fantasy nerd. I love Lord of
Do
the
you know what I
Rings.
was gonna? I'll stop you there for a second then, because that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. I mean, there's lots I want to ask you about, but when it comes to your influence, your inspiration, and what it is that makes you turn the landscape pictures you do into what I would say they almost look fantastical. Do you know what I mean? They could very easily, so many of them could be very easily freeze frames from like movies like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. There's that kind of feel about them. So, and I
Well,
know we briefly touched on this. Are you a fan of those kind of things then?
oh yes, totally. I am sick of this kind of things because since my childhood, I was a fan of this kind of designs. For example, John O, that is one of them, I think at the moment is the most popular illustrator linked to the world of Lord of the Rings, because with Alan Lee, they built the entire visual compartment of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit,
Right.
and right now on the Rings of Power. So they design in the 80s and in the 90s were on the books or maybe on the manuals of role-playing games, and I was a player, and their influence started so early in my life, and then I started to create my visual culture thanks to this guy. But not only John, but there are many illustrators that I follow with passion, like Franzetta, Ten Nasmith, or Alan Lee, Les Edwards. There are many brilliant
You'll have to
artists.
send me links to these people so
Oh
that we
yes,
can
of course,
all check those out as well. You know, I'll put those into the description and the
totally.
blog post. But you know what? I
Yes,
mean,
I sent you.
I can tell you're into this kind of stuff, and you're very up to date, because that Rings of Power I've only just seen advertised on Amazon, and you're
Oh
well
yeah,
into. Obviously, you're well aware of it then.
well, I think as a Tolkien fan, I I can say that I'm crazy for Rings of Power because I think they overhauled the plot. So the script, in my opinion, is not brilliant, but
All
visually
right.
is interesting.
Okay.
But
I have to
for me,
watch
the
that.
masterpiece in that, well, for what concerning the genre of fantasy, I think is still Lord of the Rings. The first
Yeah.
trilogy is amazing and is hard to beat.
I'm going to have to watch it. I'm going to have to watch it. But listen, one of the things that you mentioned there then was the fact that you said that luminosity masking was the thing that was like,
Yes.
whoa, now this changes everything. So you're then now able to go in and dodge and burn and stuff like that. Now makes me think straight away, look, it's okay to be aware of a technique and to learn a technique. It's a different thing applying it correctly. So what was it that made you, or what gives you that ability to use it in the way that you do? Was there something that you were studying? Was there any particular thing that you kind of turned to get the most help in that? Or was it just something that you found came naturally to be able to add light there and darkness there?
Well, for what concerning the technique itself, I learned from various tutorials that I had. Well, not tutorials, because at the time, as I said, there wasn't like a model of tutorial like today, the start to finish, where I can teach you step by step how to get the result. But I remember the manuals by Tony Kuiper, that was the inventor of luminosity mask, and his manuals were very technical. So everything was explained in detail, but the practical use, it was a bit challenging. And like how to do. I remember that he made an example related to the saturation mask, and he was barely painting using the mask. So at that point, I had the idea to use it in another way, but the basic was essentially the same thing, but used it in a different way. So I started to use the medium gray layer and later the transparent. At the beginning, I was using the medium gray because it was the standard, because everybody was using that layer for burning and dodge. But later, I changed my mind, and then I started to apply a different technique that there is another name for that is color dodge. So basically, use a transparent layer, set in overlay on hard light or soft light according to the result that you want to achieve, and then you paint over with a specific color. So you sample the color, you pick a color in your image, and then you start to paint over. Usually, you apply multiple layers, like to create for example, have you painted a metal soldier, like a miniature or something like that?
I did. Do you know, it's funny you should ask that, but during the COVID, because I couldn't take portraits, and before that I'd been photographing World War II veterans,
Well, there was a technique that is
I
named
painted aircraft, model aircraft.
Yeah, also it's pretty similar, but there is a technique that is named
do you want me to share your screen?
And what?
I thought you wanted me to share your screen, and I was getting really ready to see them, but don't worry, we'll do it later on.
This technique is like a form of chiaroscuro. So you start to paint with a layer of color, and then you add another one brighter, and then another one brighter to create three-dimensionality, and the same with the shadows. I think is at the beginning is a little challenging to handle, because you have to learn how to use the tool, and you need to train your eye to properly paint over certain area of the images, because the game changer is to make the proper corrections in the areas that you want to highlight, you want to draw the attention of the viewer. And I learned a lot from painters in this thing. This technique, for example.
No, I was going to say, because obviously we're talking here about the retouching side of it, and I want to rewind. I want to pull back the reins just a little bit, and let's just break it down to, first of all, the photography side of it, because this is what intrigues me. First of all, how are you getting the files that you do have? What are you using? What's your process that you then go on and retouch? So let's just rewind to the photography side of it, because I've got to know the process. What well, I guess first of all, then, what would you say is the percentage of kind of photography versus retouching? I mean, are you, and I don't say this in any way or ask this in any way to be offensive or anything, but are you kind of always out there when you're taking these pictures, you have to get it right in camera? Or do you ever kind of think, I kind of go there knowing what I'm going to do, so I'm not bothered about that and that. I know what I'm going to do later on. Is that the approach, or do you go out intentionally doing the composite, or does that come later?
Well, It depends, but I don't have limits in that sense. I mean, of course, capturing the entire scene exactly as you see in your photograph is so rewarding, but many times it's not possible because of the conditions, or maybe because you are trying to achieve a result that it can be done naturally. For example, one of the techniques that I'm using mostly is the time blending. I don't know if you use it, the technique, and when you are in a place and you set the tripod and you start to shoot, for example, the movement of the clouds, or maybe you're waiting to have the proper light spot on the tip of the mountain,
Mm.
it's possible that maybe you have the right light spot, but you don't have the clouds, or you have the clouds and you don't have the light spot. So
Mm.
you have to wait and shoot all the raw material that you need, and then you blend in Photoshop. Of
Right.
course, this can be is disputable. I mean, it depends what kind of approach you have into photography. I am a fine art photographer and a digital creator, so for me, using Photoshop is not a problem. I mean,
Yeah.
the objective is just to render the image as I imagined it, and I don't want to have an obstacle, because I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah. Yeah.
to renounce it to do that. But this is not that I necessarily cheat all my images, but I mean
I
there
wouldn't
are.
say it's not cheating. You're using the tools to create art.
Yes,
That's basically what
exactly.
you're doing. And you know what? When you say there about taking, the sort of taking the shot there to capture that light, and the shot there to capture the correct clouds and what have you, I've got no issue with that. And I'd be interested to know if anybody would, especially when the pictures that you're taking, the light that you're adding into it because it's the right time, the clouds you're adding into it, they're all from that location. It's not like you're going to a folder and putting other images on. It may do it on some images, but when you're doing what you're saying there is everything is from that location, and it's how you
Yeah.
see it in your head. And I kind of do nothing like yours, mine. I do a similar thing with my seascapes. I don't just capture one picture of the waves hitting the rocks. I take a load of different pictures and I blend them together so it looks like a real dramatic scene. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I've got a long way to go to
Exactly.
be you,
It's the
but
same. It's the same.
so
Absolutely.
I mean, so do you? I guess one thing I wanted to know is then when you're going out, and let's say for example that you go to, I'll choose this one. I mean, that there was one of my wow moments when I first saw it. When you go to that location there, you might tell me a surprise about this, I don't know. But when you go to that location there, are you kind of setting up thinking, right, I want to just capture this as it is? Or are you thinking, I can do this later with this? And are you thinking of the retouching when you're there, or are you thinking of initially just capturing in camera one shot or whatever?
No, in this case is a time blending, because it was a classical cloudy day in the Western Alps that are pretty common, especially in this location. And it's like Scotland. It's pretty rainy here, and there is a lot of water, and it's very green. And very often you have this daylight light that is changing fast because clouds are moving, and then I just shoot different images, and then I blend them together. So, for example, the light on the right, there
Yeah.
wasn't, because he's arrived later, and I took like 3 or 4 shots. I can't remember. I just
It's
um, paint.
it's
Well, I
absolutely
just
beautiful.
masked away the areas that I don't want it, and then I created this image.
Absolutely beautiful stuff. All right, okay, so that's a kind of an idea of how you're going through the process. Everybody always likes to talk about kit, and I know you mentioned about upgrading your camera and stuff. What kit are you using when you go out now? Then let's say if you were going out to photograph that scene just there, what camera, what kind of lenses are you kind of thinking that what do you take with you?
Well, at the moment, I'm shooting with Sony, and normally I have a wide angle. I'm shooting. I have the 12-24. I have
Yeah,
the Sony A7R4, and I
same
bring
here.
always the 24-105.
Yeah,
And if I'm going in the forest, usually bring with me a fisheye lens and a 11 millimeter that is distorted, so it's not
Yeah.
rectilinear. And since a couple of years, I bought a drone. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, from time to time, I bring with me my little drone. I purchased a Mavic 3 Mini, and
Yeah.
it's more
That's
than
what I've
enough
got.
for my needs
Yeah.
because
Totally.
well, I like it, but I consider my primary tool the camera, and because I like to enter in the scene, and I like to stay on the field and to shoot the landscape with the camera among my hands, and
What 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 about filters when you're using your camera? You've talked about the lenses there. Do you use filters or do you find them a bit of a hindrance?
I use just the polarizer. I
Oh
don't
wow,
use
okay.
graduated filters. From time to time, I'm using ND filters, maybe because I cannot achieve the proper shutter speed of the water. So I'm using filters for that.
Interesting. Do you know there's a great
MP3.
couple of there's a great couple of comments that have just come in here from what you've just been saying there. Uh, First of all, Anthony Crothers, my friend Anthony, has put totally agree. Use the tools at your disposal to get the vision of art in your mind, which makes total sense. And kind of jumping onto the back of that, which would back up what Anthony's just said there. Judy Lindo has just put, unless you are taking photos for National Geographic, I don't think there is anything wrong with playing with a photo until you get what pleases you. I couldn't agree more. And I guess you're the same, Enrico. Yeah. Good. I'm glad. I'm doing something right. Okay. Now, obviously, when it comes to, we've talked about the photography side of things there, then the retouching. You mentioned that you're using Photoshop. I'm also intrigued because of the looks that you're getting. If I kind of dive into some of these images, especially these kind of images here, this kind of dreamy, mystical kind of look. It just seems that no matter what the scene, I mean, I've got to say, I think that is my favourite. Out of the selection you sent over, I think that's my favourite. What are you using any kind of special plugins or anything at all? Is there anything else that you kind of use in your retouching workflow?
Oh yes, I use many plugins, but mainly at the moment I'm using Nik Collection. I'm
Right.
using Boris FX. I started to use it because Rene invited me to discover this tool, and it's pretty amazing. And,
It is, yeah.
there are tons of filters inside, and well, it's very vast. I started to use it recently. I find the grading tool very powerful. You have a lot of control over every single aspect of the highlight, midtone, and shadows, and
Yeah.
I love it. It's very advanced. I mean, you can really make a grading in an advanced way that you can't achieve normally with Photoshop. Well, you can, but it's more complicated. With that tool is faster, right? Because I think that you can do everything with Photoshop. The plugins are just speeding up your workflow, and so I think the point is to understand how to use how to reproduce the same effect of the plugin with Photoshop, because I lived on my personally the lack of a filter for a moment of time when when Google discontinued the use of Nik Collection,
Mm.
and 𝐷xO was not already on the market with the new version, so there was a gap, and in that moment I started to think. Well, okay, plugins are nice, but you have to learn to do the same with Photoshop.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm
Yeah.
fucked
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the
So
same thing. I remember years ago when I kind of first started out, I was doing everything in Photoshop, and then companies started to produce all these filters, and Nick was obviously one of them with the Nick Collection and what have you. And then I started using them, and then people were asking me, "How did you do that?" And I'd have to, between me and you, I'd lie and I'd say, "Oh, I did it in Photoshop doing this," but I didn't. I did it in a plugin. So I got rid of all the plugins and had to start from scratch, and it was amazing how much I'd forgotten in Photoshop and almost had to relearn. So now I'm kind of like that about. I do use them. I've got the Boris FX one, thanks to Rene. And then the only other things I've got is like software or plugins that kind of enlarge photos. So I've not really got any other additional editing ones. So I'm going to have to, I'm intrigued now at your process. I'm intrigued. Okay. Listen, we're going to have a break in a moment, but one thing I did want to ask you was regards to the photography side of it. When you're going to go out, again, to a location like this, all these kind of places here, I'm intrigued by your planning and preparation, because obviously I know as well that you do workshops. You know, you take small groups of people or one-to-ones out. When it comes to that, or even when it's just you on your own, what kind of planning and preparation do you do? Is there anything that you particularly turn to? Are there any apps that you use? Because when I asked Nick Page this, he admitted that he'd become a weather geek and he's always looking at the weather. What about you? What's your process? If you were going to go out in a few days' time, what would you now be planning and doing?
Well, compared to Nick, I have an advantage because in Europe, the distances between locations are shorter. So I can change at last minute. And well, certainly the weather is very important. So some tools to check the movement of the clouds and some various weather app that you can follow the movement and the change of temperature and this kind of things. But in general, I love to have a B plan. So especially when I am with a group of persons, I never bring persons in places where there is only one possible shoot. I mean, I love to bring people in places where they can take the ground landscape, and if the weather is not good, I can bring them in the forest, maybe shooting waterfalls or doing other kind of shots that are fascinating but different, but I can save the day. Otherwise, it's complicated, especially if you hike up in the mountains. Maybe you are in a mountain hut, you are far away from everything, and then suddenly you have a storm and you can see nothing. You can shoot. You can just drink a bottle of wine. You can do nothing.
Take a bottle of wine with you. Love it. All right. Okay. Listen, let's have a very quick break so we can have a bit of a slurp of some water or something like that. I'll play something, but then when we come back, there's more I want to ask you about with regards to your process. And I know that you very kindly said that you're going to show your screen just to show some behind the scenes on the images, which I'm going to be fascinated by, and I know people watching will be fascinated by as well. So let's just have a quick break. I will mute you, so don't worry about us hearing anything. So you'll be all right there. Okay. And then we'll come back to have a look at your screen. So right, I'll just mute you now. Let's just dive over to here. Wow, I still can't get over that one main image. That one here. Let's have a look at this one. That is just. I just love that image. I absolutely love that. So yeah, we'll dive back in a moment. Just have a quick slurp of the water, and then Enrico's going to share his screen just to give us a look behind the scenes, kind of like what Rene did, which was fascinating. So yeah, play a quick advert. You might know what this is going to be about, and I'll see you in about a minute and a half. Now this is how to print. The ultimate guide to consistently achieving the perfect print. At nearly 3 years in the making, How to Print is packed with content covering everything you would need to know. Hardware choices, how to correctly calibrate your display, how to check that your printer is even working correctly because the problems you may be having might not be something you're doing. Produce stunning black and white prints, colour prints that come alive on the paper. Understanding colour space, resizing images, how to sharpen your images specifically for printing, how to correctly softproof so no more wasted money on ink and paper, how to choose the right paper for the right image, printing with different software choices, if you send image files to a lab for printing, How to Print has that covered too. There's interviews with industry professionals and even how to display your images. How to Print has got it all. And when you enroll, you also get lifetime updates, making sure How to Print is the go-to guide for achieving the perfect print. Very, very happy with that. You can probably tell by my beaming smile, but that looks fantastic. That was a genuine reaction, that was as well. Right, okay, let's bring the main man back again. I'm going to unmute him. That's gone off, and then we can come to here. So, Enrico, all right then. There's more I want to ask you, but I'm kind of chomping at the bit now. I want to see your screen. I'm
Okay.
intrigued as to what you're going to share. So let me know when you're happy for me to share your screen, and I will
Well,
press the
actually,
magic
you
button.
can.
Oh, there we go. Right, I shall jump over to your screen now. So now we can see your. That's a lovely image. We can see your Photoshop now.
Yes. So I have some example here of how I process my images and all the steps. Well, I'm sorry because I normally I don't name the layer, but I will try to explain how I did it. And
I love your honesty.
so let's start from the beginning. This
Well,
is
I'll just
what
there we
the
go.
base
Right, okay.
image, and then I started to replace like a little part of the sky because it was too bright. And then I brighten up a bit the shadows, and then I replace this area here because it was too bright. Then basically is a time blending because, for example, this area there was oh, I forgot one part. I'm sorry. This was the first the first piece of the image, and then the second one. As you can see, there are two
Yeah,
different moments of lights, and then I blended together, and then I started to build the light on it. I used the tools that I mentioned before that has this transparent layer set
yeah,
in overlay mode, where you can really paint the light over and you can improve in a very effective way
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the power of light. And then here I made some minor adjustments, for example, levels. And I used here I used Nick for with the Viveza tool that is very handy for brightening up for changing for targeting only the greens and changing the hue of the grass, and it is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And then I added some diffused light here, and then I used core effects here. As you can see, core effects, I toned down some areas here because I like to build like a sort of transition dark to bright. Is
Yeah,
pretty constant in my images because I love to avoid distraction in the foreground. I love that the viewer is flying through the frame toward the center
yes,
of
yeah,
where
yeah,
is
yeah,
the light or the main subject. And then again, I improved the greens with Viveza, and then I added an extra layer of light, as you can see here. Now is I
yeah,
changed the color, it is brighter and warmer, and then I adjusted the highlights, and then I continued to, because sometimes I repeat the steps, because if I'm not satisfied, I repeat the same things
yeah,
multiple
yeah.
times until
That's a lot of layers there, Enrico.
yes, there are so many layers, but basically I'm doing always the same things because maybe I'm not happy about one thing and then I create another layer and then I paint over and then I'm not happy and then I create another transparent layer. For example, here I painted out some gray here to hide some bright spots in the sky, and then I changed again, and then I added some light here
Well,
until at the end
I
I
mean, there's a lot
achieved.
of work going into it. But Enrico, when you're doing this,
Yes.
so I'll just jump back so we can see you and me together at the moment. By the way, when you're doing this, how long are you? How long would you say on average you're taking? Because clearly, I'm guessing that isn't a. You don't do that in one sitting. You don't just get back when you're ready, sit there and go through the whole
No.
process, or do you? I mean, it's
Usually
there's obviously a
I
lengthy
finish.
process.
No, I never stop. I mean, when I start to edit a picture, I finish it, and
Wow.
usually it takes 1 hour, maybe 2 hours, depends. I have another one here that is a little more complicated.
Oh, I love it.
This
Look
is
at that.
it was definitely challenging to edit because it's a time blending that is started at 6 a.m. and the light ray here is arrived like around 9. So it was a long
Wow.
time blending. This is the final result. And I started from the first
Wow.
image here, and then I started to blend. As you can see, I wanted to add some clouds here, and then I brightened a bit the shadows, and then I adjusted the foreground here because I wanted to have just this beam of light, but not so strong. And then in this case, when I'm doing this thing, I'm preparing what I call my raw file, because I'm just preparing what is the base of my edit. Now,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm adjusting everything, and I build the final composition. Here I added some clouds that were flying. I don't know if you visited this spot in the Swiss Alps, but
No, I haven't. No.
after rain, after heavy rains, usually there are so many clouds flying for the whole day, up and down, and so you have a lot of options in this, and you can capture all the raw files that you need, and then at the end you can you can build the scene as you want.
Wow.
Then I continue to add all the layers here. I darkened all the frame because I wanted to then to focus the attention of the viewer only on the bright areas here. For example, here I used foliage to exaggerate the brightness of
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
green. But of course, then I changed it until a more natural result here because it was less saturated, and then I painted over, and then I adjusted everything. This is the final,
Wow.
the final result.
Wow. I'm just going to dive back so that it's me and you on screen at the moment. So I don't know if you would jump over to Google Chrome again there, but
Okay.
looking at those two examples there, there's a comment that's very apt that my friend Anthony's just put in here. He says, if you gave these files to 10 different photographers, you'd get 10 different results. And he goes on to say,
Yes.
this is the closest I'd ever get to being an artist with an easel. And I totally get what he's saying, but you know, like the images there, what's fascinating is it is totally true what Anthony says. It's you give it to somebody else to do it, they do it completely different. And that's what really does get me about this photography and creative world, is that how we see and envision things differently. But it's I don't know, would you say that's something that is, for what you do, is it something that you've naturally got? Do you think you've naturally got an eye for that, or have you had to develop the eye for that? Could anybody really do what you're doing? They do a version of it,
Yes.
but could they do what you do?
Well, sometimes even for me, it's challenging to reproduce the same result. So if you ask to make the same edit of that image, probably
Yeah.
maybe I can arrive close, but it's very challenging to make an exact copy because there is a lot of manual work, and
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. I mean, because this make my photography unique, and
Yeah.
uh, so, in terms of techniques, I think everybody can do it. It's just a matter of patience. You need to try, and then you need to use Photoshop every day. It's like a gym.
Yes.
You can't
Yeah.
stop. You have to use
Yeah.
the program every day. You have to make exercise. You have to make experiments. Maybe you need some friends to share it. So maybe you can send the images and then have a feedback. So it's important to have some sincere photo friends. They can be very helpful, especially because at the beginning it's very easy to be cheated by your eyes, because maybe you're happy, you see, oh, it's amazing, but sometimes a review from a friend
Yeah.
is opening your eyes, and even a different display. Maybe you can send your pictures in your office and to see how your images are looking, not in your
There's
home,
there's
because
a thing I used to say that people, it's very easy when you're there working away on an image. I used to call it being pixel blind, that you
yeah,
can't, you start to lose sight of what you've done, and it's very dangerous then because you can overdo things. And I agree with what you say. It's always good to have somebody else's eyes onto it who you can trust. and maybe not a member of the family, because they're going to say nice things about it, but people who will give you honest opinions. And it's funny that you mentioned the gym there, because it reminds me of when I was years ago. When I was competing, I used to do bodybuilding, and I remember there was a guy who I trained with, a guy called Sean O'Reilly, and he was married. Anybody in the UK, whatever, they used to watch the Gladiators. He's married to Helen, who was Panther in the Gladiators. And Sean always used to say to me that a real friend would never let you go on stage until you're ready. They'll be honest. Whereas if you're training for that competition and you're showing your mom and whatever and your dad and they're, oh, you look amazing, son, you look amazing. Whereas a real friend would say your calves are lagging, you're not looking so good, your abs aren't there. So it's a similar kind of thing. I very much relate the creative world to the sports, physical training kind of world, because there are similarities in my mind. There really are, that you have to exercise the brain, you have to exercise the body.
Yes, the difference is that in the field of arts is very subjective. I mean, in the sports, if you are stronger than me, faster than me, okay, is under your eyes. Well, you can say nothing if you are better than me. But in photography, saying that I am better than you, you are better than me, is subjective. I mean, even in the competitions, I see most of the times in photography competitions, and for my taste, most of the times I don't see awarded very great images, but what is subjective. I mean, it's me. It's not. It's personal.
I love your honesty. I mean, I wasn't going to ask you this, but as soon as you mentioned that, have you ever? Because I never have you ever entered any of these kind of camera competitions, photography competitions?
Yes, I do. I did, because I no longer do that, because I think my photography is not for competitions, because is too artistic. Maybe the approach is not exactly fine art. Maybe it is not the kind of photography that juries are expecting. Well, I don't want to be nasty, but I want to say a reality that, in my opinion, is under the sun. I mean, in the competition, you have to do only certain kind of images. Take one of the big names in the field of photography competitions, and there are always awarded images from Iceland, Patagonia, Faroe, maybe Lofoten. And I know there is a reason. It's just a business, and this kind of photography are so commercial. All the photographers are going in these places to shoot their images, and of course are trying to achieve a good result sending these images to the competition. So it's a business, and I can't expect. If I was the organizer, probably I will do the same. But it's just a business like any other, and I'm not expecting that the person is doing that only for celebrating the art. Maybe, except in certain cases, like I think BBC is free. The BBC, or maybe there are some competitions that are free, that are made for celebrating art, but are very few and very exclusive. Like Photoshop is not allowed, and all these kind of things. And I think I respect enormously this kind of photography. I remember I had the chance to meet Lars van der Goor. He was Hasselblad master, and we meet in Trierenberg during a jury meeting, because I was in a jury, so I know the business. And it was interesting to. I learned many things on this world. This is the reason why, at the moment, I'm not feeling comfortable to join competition. But from time to time, I try. It's like a lottery. I mean, I try to bet like 50 euros, and then maybe I can win. But honestly, I'm almost hopeful and desperate.
All right. Well, as soon as you mentioned there, we've gone down that line of sort of camera clubs, societies, and what they will and won't accept. and some of them will sort of say, look, you can only do so many things or certain things when it comes to Photoshop. Going down that same route, that naturally makes me think of what we have available now and what is only going to just get bigger and bigger and bigger, which is AI, the use of artificial intelligence. And I'm sort of talking about, you know, Adobe's Firefly and all the other different applications and platforms there are out there. I'm intrigued to know, because at the moment we've not seen or heard anything about that from you when you're explaining your images. What are your thoughts on that when it comes to using AI in your images?
AI, I think, is it will be a revolution, and reminds me a bit the moment when I lived the transition between the classical the traditional photography to digital photography, and then later the filters users against multiple exposure users. And I remember all the wars on social media and the forums
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
of the people that were they agreed to the use of one tool instead another. And I think, considering the big investments made by Apple or Microsoft and all the big techs are doing in the use of artificial intelligence, I think has no sense today exclude the AI from your workflow. Well, maybe you can use it just to fix your image, maybe to reduce noise, or maybe to replace an area that you don't like, or maybe you can use it for create something that is not real. Honestly, I do not understand the use of AI to cheat reality. I mean, to create a fake landscape. I find it pretty useless. I mean, I don't find it interesting. But for a photographer, I mean, but for a creative, can be very, very powerful. For example, imagine uh, if you want to create a composite with a person with a costume, maybe a medieval knight or a model or something like that, you can do it for only a few dollars. In the past, you needed to have a studio, and then you have
yeah.
needed to have lights, and you have to pay the model, you have to pay the costume. Well, you can create crazy things just with paying maybe 20 euros, and it will be a revolution. Of course,
But
probably.
how do you see yourself? Because you say there then to use it to create a landscape, you just think is pointless and whatever as a photographer to use it for doing that. But in your work, do you see a use for it? And do you see, and if you do, how do you see yourself using it going forward?
Oh yeah, but actually, I have a project related to AI, and it's something I started 2 years ago with the first, like it was the Mid Journey 3 or 4.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
remember. And I called this project the Midnight Lodge. It was funny because I had the chance for the first time in my life to create something fantasy with my hands. And it wasn't possible with photography to achieve certain results. Before that, I built some composites image. Uh, Maybe if you share the screen, I can show an
Yeah. Yeah.
example.
When you're ready, I shall dive over.
Yeah.
Okay.
For
Right. Yeah.
example, this image is a composite image I created inspired by a famous painting of I can't remember the name of the painter. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's
Um,
live nerves. I get it. Live nerves.
well, the name is Procession in the Fog. One second. I think he's Oeme. Yeah, here we go. I remember this painting in my books at school.
Oh, right. Okay.
And there was this procession of friars with this Gothic, I think, chapel or something like that, walking in the forest. And I always ask to myself where these friars are going.
Oh,
And so
wow. Okay.
I created the second chapter. I mean, the freers that probably arriving into the abbey. So I took this cloister that I shot in Portugal, and then I completely changed it. I used like a misty and snowy landscape that I shot outside my window, and and then I took this group of freers on the web, and then I just pasted them at the end of
Wow.
this cloister. And well, it was pretty exciting. And this was one of my first serious composites. And starting from this project, that was I called romantic project because it was involved like a lot of my passion for romanticism and this kind of topics. And with AI, I am able to create crazy things. Of course, doing everything with Photoshop, uh, it is very challenging. It's more challenging
Yeah.
than using AI,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that it is easy, because AI, okay, it can create a lot of cool things, but most of the times is not precise. Maybe it can create something that is not exactly what you described, or
Yeah.
maybe there isn't the proper mode. So you have to try a lot of times, and then when you have created maybe 100 images, then you find a good one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
nice thing that you can blend the components with your photographs, and I think
Yeah.
it's pretty fun. You can create amazing art for that. And of course, there are a lot of persons that are saying that AI is not art, it is crap, and all these kind of things. And well, on one side, I can say yes, but if you put something of yourself with AI and your photographs together, I think you can create nice things.
It's
It will be
I
this.
find it incredible. What you can do nowadays is just brilliant. And I view the AI stuff, and I think Kirsty's just mentioned it there. That, I mean, she's using it. She says here mainly at the moment where we have AI for doing noise reduction and sharpening and stuff like that, which is incredibly useful. But the future excites me with this AI. But on the other hand, I'm also aware of how much I would want to use it, because it really, for me, and I'm guessing it's going to be the same for you, is that AI really, when all's said and done, is going to be another tool that we have access to, just like we've always had tools that we can do certain things with. AI is always going to be there, but as a tool. And I think it's down to our individuals and discipline and stuff like that as to how much we use it.
Well, actually, when I saw the first time AI, and I was immediately excited because I am an avid collector of books, art books that related to the world of movie and video games, because I love the concept art. I like to see the work behind a movie, or behind a concept. And so I was used to browse between these artworks, and I was totally amazed and mesmerized by these works. And then I said to myself, now you're able to do something similar. But you have no longer the limit of your camera, so you can
Yeah.
go further. And I think is amazing. Of
Mm.
course, it will be like a democratization. I'm sorry for my English, and of art, because everybody will be able to create something cool and maybe quality art. But I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also, let me just put in this for a minute.
only.
It's only doesn't matter how good the tools are, and I'm saying this because I'm sure you agree with me here, Enrico, that you can type in certain things to get the AI to create stuff. But if you've not got the eye to know what looks good and stuff, then it's still going to
Oh
make
yes,
and produce
oh yes.
rubbish. You know what I mean? It's still down to very much how we are all able, and I include everybody in the chat here, how we see what looks good in our eyes, as opposed to just, oh, I don't need to worry about that now. I can just type it in and thank you very much. It looks good. It's still got to have
I
that
to-
creativity.
I totally agree. Well, AI, as we said, is a powerful tool. But
Yeah.
if you go on Instagram, and there are many profiles of people are creating images every day, but I see there isn't a project behind. There isn't a concept that are just a lot of thousands of beautiful images, but are not linked together. And there isn't a personality. So you can say these images are made by a person or maybe an author, are just beautiful images altogether. And the same with photography. Yeah? Not all the photographers are able to build like a trademark, a style that is
Yeah.
recognizable.
Yeah.
And I think this is always sacrificed because, as we said before, the commercial photography, not in terms of commercial made for brands, but I mean the kind of photography that is more easy to sell and uh, turned some of the most breathtaking landscapes in the world just like a checklist, like
Mm.
did. But in the end, behind these works, I see sometimes there isn't a soul. I mean, uh, I can say that are bad images because maybe they are spectacular, conditions are good, maybe compositions are good, but I don't see that there is a person behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Listen, I want to let's move away from the AI thing because I'm sure we could do a whole afternoon live talking about that. But it was just interesting
Yeah.
to see what your thoughts were in regards to it, and as I kind of guessed, really that you just see it as a tool, but it's exciting to see what we can do as long as we use it in the correct kind of ways. Now, I've just noticed a comment here, which is a fantastic segue into what I was going to bring up anyway. And this is from Doris, who's in there. She says, I would love to see him create from his step-by-step creating and explaining why the light, darks, composition, etc., etc. Well, Doris, can I just say, let's just bring this up here. And I wasn't going to bring it up like this, but I will do anyway. Enrico does do, I've mentioned already, you do workshops, you do small groups, you do one-to-ones, but you also teach the retouching side of things as well, don't you? And very kindly on your website, there's the link to the website. You've got two of Enrico's quite very comprehensive tutorial packs that he's got there teaching you how to do it. And he's very kindly set up this code here of GLIN24, which gives you €30 off. Now, what I did earlier on, I did, and he didn't give me this, I just did it without him knowing. I went and brought the one I wanted, which was the dark processing and mastering the mood, because I love moody images. So I've got that tutorial. And I think with the €30 off, it made it to €60, which I think was about 50 pounds. But there's a lot of content in there. So that was just to kind of let you know that Enrico does have tutorials. But that code, let me just bring that back up again there, is valid. He's put that in there, and it's valid until the 30th of September. So if you do fancy having a look at it, if you're kind of really intrigued by that little taster there that Enrico gave us when he was going through his retouching, have a look at it. Go to the website. The links are in the chat. They'll also be in the blog, and have a look at that. But I now that I've got the printing course out, I will be diving into that this week because I'm so chomping at the bit to get out there and do some more stuff. Enrico, we've been talking for over an hour and 7 minutes. So I just want to ask you one other thing, because what I'll do is we will get you on, if you agree, to come on in about 6 months' time, and we can kind of maybe see what else you've been up to over that period of time, any new images, and talk through those. But the thing I wanted to ask you is, it's always interesting to me because now you've been doing this for a while. You got a very recognizable style. What would you say is, out of all the time you've been doing this now, what would you say is the biggest lesson, most valuable lesson that you have learned to help you do what you do? If you think about when you first started to where you are now, what's the most valuable thing you've ever learned?
In terms of photography, you mean?
In terms of anything that enables you to do what you do now, what is it you think that you could put it down to that's helped you to do or be able to do what you're doing now?
Well, in terms of photography, I learned to shoot with different conditions. Well, I think that it was one of the most important steps in the evolution of my photography because when I started, I remember that most of the photographers were shooting only sunsets or sunrises. And of course, are the moment of the day when the light is most enjoyable. But I changed my mind when I started to visit some areas in the Western Alps where conditions were more challenging, and achieving like a good uh, red sky, it was pretty challenging. So I started to actually, it was perfect for the kind of photography I had in mind. So because this arch light that you see in many of my images are
Hmm.
captured in the mid of the afternoon, maybe at 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, when the sun starts to go down a little bit, but
Yeah,
is
yeah,
still the light is still cold, but you have a beautiful three dimensionality. And of course, you have to go in the right day when you have some clouds and it's not completely clear. But I think that it was a game changer for what concerning the approach of photography, because I was able to capture many images that at the beginning for me it was just unthinkable, or maybe shooting during a rainy day. One of my most popular images, it was captured during a rainy day, and is the first edited in my course Dark Processing and Mastering the Mood. It was
oh, good.
valley, and that day it was rainy.
I'm
It was
looking.
very arrogant, and that day I understood that it was the possibility of shooting even during the bad weather, and
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was just amazing.
yeah.
And for what concerning the business and the human side, I understood that probably living a wild is challenging. And
Mm.
that is the most important thing. But I think, well, besides my jokes, and I think it's important to make all your photographs, and I mean, you're when you are creating art, that is photography, painting, or whatever, and think you're sharing something of you, and so it's important that you shoot for your own. So you have to follow your passion,
Yes.
regardless of the trends and regardless of what people are saying. You have to do what makes you happy. Of course, if you don't,
Yes.
you if it's not your primary job, otherwise you have to do something that maybe you don't like.
But that is, I mean, there's definitely a very, very common link there with what you say, because many other previous guests, even on Dinder, who's not a photographer, he was last week's guest doing Photoshop. He was the same attitude: do what you love, because the benefits of that are that you will continue to enjoy it, but you'll also continue to just be a sponge and just absorb more and learn more because you're enjoying doing it. So yeah, fascinating, fascinating. All right, listen, let me just dive over. Then I'm going to just quickly. While you've been talking and showing stuff, I've been going through to see if there are any questions. I think we've mainly got comments. Unsurprisingly, all loving what you do. But let me have a quick sort of scout through here. All these comments, by the way, will still be there when this recording goes up, so you're always able to check in and have a look at them. There's loads that are just doing loads of stuff. There's something about the questions here, the competition stuff. Kirsty, regular guest Kirsty's put the country file competition is free. Well, there you go. There you go. Competitions. We're talking about competitions. Sally Berry, very correct. She says, time to exercise daily on the computer.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I'm trying to look through it. So Dave Kelly's put Photoshop hurts my head. Lightroom only for me. It
Well,
is.
actually, you can achieve good results with Lightroom too.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
you can
Lightroom
create
is.
masks. You can do a lot of things
Yeah,
in Lightroom. It's different. It's no longer
yeah.
like 10 years ago.
Absolutely, yeah, incredibly powerful now. And Heath Barber has just put this one. Actually, that's a good question. This. What is your take on screen calibration? Obviously, you're an IT, you're a tech guy. What is your take on screen calibration? Just curious how you think of this and maybe how this has changed in your mind over time. So,
Here you
be
go.
honest. Do you screen? Do you screen? Oh, there you go. Look, there you go. Let's just bring that up. Good man. So yeah, it's an important part of the process.
I calibrated my monitor 2 days ago, so it was still on my desktop. And
Fantastic.
well, for what concerning the environment, I'm using a NAC monitor, and I always work with um, bright gray background in Photoshop. I don't use the dark version because when you create moody and dark images, is really easy to get your eye cheated. So I recommend to use always a bright
Right.
background. Yeah, well, at least that worked for me, but maybe
Yeah,
not for
yeah,
you. But I
yeah.
think for me it was pretty helpful. And I use a lamp that is 6500K in my camera. Is not my primary lamp. I use it only when I edit it because maybe aesthetically it's not amazing because looks like an hospital, but it's perfect for editing.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Okay. My viewing lamp that I will use to look at my images when they're printed is 6,000 Kelvin. So very, 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 very close. But yeah, interesting.
Pretty cool.
I understand why you say about the using a brighter background on the Lightroom, because it's kind of more like looking at paper. So it still makes it more like art as well, doesn't it? I suppose. But you've
Well,
got
at
your
the
reasons
beginning,
for it.
I remember that I was fascinated by the dark background because it was more enjoyable for my eyes because my images look more contrasted and
Yeah.
more attractive. And but then I understood that was challenging for me because very very often I was overdoing with the dark, and then I changed that aspect of my editing, my work environment, and then it was pretty helpful.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. Just to finish off, then, Andrew Dora has just put, he totally disagrees about AI. It's not a tool if it makes decisions for you. The photographer loses control in that case. Oh, blimey, we could go down a rabbit hole there. But everyone's entitled to their opinion. I get it. I guess I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. But it's not really making decisions, I don't think. You're the
Oh
one that
yes,
will make the
it
you're
is
the
the
one that will
reason
make
why.
the final decision, really, when it comes to when we're talking about using it within on our images and adding bits in. You're the one that ultimately makes the decision whether you use that or not, or whether it looks good or not. So
Exactly. So unfortunately is still not so evolved. So you can change
yeah,
the frame exactly as you when you use your camera, but you can generate many images and then pick that there and the part of the image that you want and then blend in your real photograph. So I think you have a lot of flexibility. Of course, you need to work a little more, but I think it's
yeah,
part of the game. Pretty enjoyable,
absolutely.
especially during the winter. It's a nice game.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, well, listen, we're gonna wrap up because I want to get to find out where people can see more of your stuff. But before I do, just so I don't forget, Kirsty's just added in here as well that the country file competition is for non-professionals. So that's worth noting. So thank you for that, Kirsty. And Anthony has put, "Can we see the slideshow again?" You bet. You bet you're going to see it again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, Enrico, listen, thank you so much for your time with this. We've covered so much ground, and it's been really interesting hearing your very honest
Thanks to
opinion
you.
about things. But
Sorry
where
because I
where
got
can people where can people go to see more of your stuff and what you're up to?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Where
I
where
am
should
exactly
people go? Where should people go to follow you and see what you're doing and any
Oh,
updates, social media, and stuff like that?
yes. Well, you can go on the website. In the home page, you have there are the links to all my social media. You can
Oh,
see
right.
the icons. There is Twitter,
Yeah.
500px, Vero, Flickr, Facebook, Instagram. But mainly, I'm active on Instagram and Facebook.
Cool. And don't forget, there's those tutorials, and we've also got that little code there. But I'll include that in the description, the blog post, and all that kind of stuff as well. But Enrico, thank you so much. I'd love to get you back on in about 6 months' time or so, something like that, just to see what else you've been up to. But I really, really do appreciate you doing this on a non-working day.
No problem. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much to everybody.
Thank you very much. Right, don't disappear. Go and relax in the virtual green room, and I shall see you
Okay.
in a moment. I'm going to mute you now so you can make whatever noise you want. See you in a moment. All righty, there we go. Wow, that was fascinating. Seeing that process there and getting to see that behind the scenes, original out of camera, or the first kind of shot that he's done that he's built on. Fascinating, really fascinating. But yeah, which is one I've got. I've got the dark processing and mastering the mood tutorial package. There's always more to learn. There's always be a sponge. Always more to learn. Do you know what? If I learn one thing, and I'm sure I'll learn a lot more. Of course I will. But if I learn just one thing, for me, it'll be worth it because it's something I didn't know. I love it. Wow. All right. Let's just wrap things up then. Let's go for the admin. What's it to say? Oh yeah, the printing course. That's out. Which I'm really happy with. If you're not a member of the newsletter group and you want that full tutorial and other stuff that I'm putting on that page, that private page now, There's the latest link to get that tutorial. That'll take you through to signing up if you've not already. And you'll get two newsletters a month. And each time there'll be a video on there of some description or some kind of a content which is only for subscribers. It won't be on YouTube, although I am going to be putting out some new stuff on YouTube as well very, very soon. Ian Munro is out there. I don't know if he's still in the chat, but he was certainly there earlier on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly refresh that page, see how he's getting on. Oh, he's not had any updates just yet on that page, but he's there. He's not far off his total that he needs. He's doing well. I really hope the weather holds off for him. The background, when he sent a picture earlier on, looked amazing. But I just hope that he's able to do that. Right, I've got Enrico in the room there. There we go. It's just me on my own. Press the wrong button. Right, we're going to finish next week. We were going to have a guest. We may still have a guest. It was going to be Ellie Rothney, who I'm really looking forward to chatting to. But now she's been whisked away. She's got an assignment, so she'll be on a plane on that day. So she will now be there here with me on the 6th of October, Sunday the 6th of October. But I will be working around this week, moving things around, dates with people, see if I can get somebody in next week. But there will be a live regardless. Keep an eye on the socials. I shall update you as and when. That's it. That's pretty much it. Got some good guests coming up. I've had Uli Steiger. He's going to be on very soon. Rob Sylvan, my friend Rob Sylvan, who's like the Lightroom doctor. He's incredible at Lightroom, but his photography is lovely as well. So he's going to be on as well. There's lots happening. But I'm going to wrap this up now by playing you Enrico's promo slideshow again, his video. I love it. Really love it. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. Thanks for keeping the chat room so active. Really appreciate you coming back week on week. Yeah, I shall see you next week. Same time, same place. 7 p.m. UK for who knows what or who knows who. But I'll be here. See you later.